Hey Exiles, how you doing? Neurotalk Gaming here, and today we're diving into Path of Exile 2, the sequel that's been generating more hype than a freshly baked baguette in Paris bakery. As a longtime fan of ARPGs, starting with legendary Diablo 2, I've been eagerly waiting to see what Grinding Gear Games has cooked up this time. So let's find out. To start, I will be talking about good parts of the game, and then we'll get to the minuses and my gripes with it at the end of the video. Set 20 years after the original, Path of Exile 2 throws us back into the corrupted lands of Wraeclast. The world hasn't got any kinder, new threats have risen, and ancient evil lurks just out of sight. It's the perfect setting for a fresh adventure in this dark, twisted landscape. One of the standout features of Path of Exile 2 is its diverse class system. With 6 core classes to choose from, each offering unique playstyles, there's something here for everyone, and they will be adding 6 more classes during early access until release. So, whether you're drawn to quick decisive strikes of the monk, the elemental power of the sorceress, or the chaotic minion summoning of the witch, every class feels distinct. I personally went with the mercenary, and let me tell you, his crossbow gameplay feels like a top-down shooter in disguise. With ammo types like fast rounds, shotgun blasts and grenades, it's a refreshingly tactical experience that stands out from the traditional ARPG fare. Combat is the beating heart of any ARPG, and Path of Exile doesn't just polish what came before, it reinvents it. If you found the original game combat a bit clunky, you're in for the treat. Every attack, spell and movement feels fluid and impactful, making the action more engaging than ever for both newcomers and veterans alike. Animations have seen huge upgrade, weapon strikes feel weighty and deliberate, with characters visibly following through on their actions. Spells ripple dynamically through the environment, enhancing the immersion, and this isn't just for show, it fundamentally changes how the gameplay feels, which is very true for any RPG. For example, every crossbow shot as a mercenary carries a satisfying punch, thanks not only to the improved visuals but also to the incredible sound design. One of the most exciting changes is the dynamic evasion system. Dodging isn't just about frantic clicking anymore, it's just about reading the battlefield and reacting with precision. Whether you're stepping aside from giant crushing ground slam, or weaving through a barrage of projectiles, Path of Exile rewards thoughtful movement and positioning like never before. The skill system has seen significant overhaul as well, and trust me, it's a game changer. Skill gems are no longer tied to your gear, instead they now exist independently within a dedicated gem grid connected to your character. This simple but effective change eliminates the frustration of constantly swapping gems every time you find a better weapon or a piece of armor. The result? A cleaner, more streamlined system that lets you focus on what really matters, perfecting your build. Each active gem still represents a unique ability, such as Mercenary's different ammunition types, from rapid fire rounds to explosive grenades. Support gems which modify and enhance these abilities have also been reimagined. The way they connect now allows for more intricate combinations, letting you create chains of support gems to fine-tune your skills in a way that were never possible before. The system actively encourages experimentation and creativity. Want your fireball to travel faster, hit harder, and explode in a fiery burst on impact? No problem, just put the corresponding support gems in and you will have it. Unlike the original game, you're no longer limited by the number of sockets in your gear, instead each skill comes with its own cap for support gems. The number of support gems you can equip depends on your character's stats, with every 5 points in a stat granting an additional slot. It's a system that feels intuitive, freeing and ripe for exploration. At its core, Path of Exile 2 is about shaping predefined molds and embracing the freedom to craft character that matches your unique playstyle. Whether you're a veteran chasing the perfect build, or a casual player experimenting with wild combinations, the game has something for everyone. As I mentioned previously, each class comes with its own distinct identity and starting attributes, ensuring there's a playstyle to fit every type of player. But the real magic begins as you progress. Your class is only the starting point of a journey filled with endless possibilities. Fancy turning your sorceress into melee juggernaut wielding a flaming greatsword? Well, this is possible. I don't know how efficient it would be, but still it is possible. Or maybe you'd prefer a monk summoning elemental spirits to aid in battle? Well, again, you would need to go heavily into intellect, but it's still possible to go into there as well. As was in the previous game, the backbone of this customization is the legendary passive skill tree, a staple of Path of Exile series. If you thought the original game tree was massive, prepare to be overwhelmed again. This new iteration is absolutely colossal, with nearly 500 nodes to explore. Each one offers meaningful progression, from boosting your elemental damage to strengthening your defenses or empowering your minions. The beauty of the tree lies in the flexibility. Although every class shares the same tree, your starting position depends on your chosen character. From there, the possibilities are virtually limitless. Want to pivot from focusing on physical damage to mastering elemental magic halfway through your build? No problem. Or maybe you'd like to transform into a breakable summoner, letting your minions do the heavy lifting when you soak the damage. The choice is entirely yours. Customization is Path of Exile's beating heart, but it's not without its challenges. Freedom in this game comes with a price, responsibility, or in this case, understanding what to build. The game doesn't hold your hand, so you'll need to carefully allocate skill points, balance your offense and defense, and adapt your strategy as new challenges arise. Thankfully, there is an NPC early in the game that allows you to refund your passive skill points, but it does cost money, so you need to be careful with that. Tougher enemies and intricate mechanics will constantly test your builds, forcing you to think critically and refine your approach. Speaking of challenges, let's talk about the atmosphere. If you thought Path of Exile 1 was dark and gritty, Path of Exile 2 takes it up a notch, or 5. From the moment you step into Wraeclast, it's clear that Grinding Gear Games has elevated the visuals and sound design to a whole new level, creating a world that's hauntingly beautiful and horrifying in equal measure. The environments in Path of Exile 2 are nothing short of stunning. Dark forests brimming with werewolves and twisted ancient trees, muddy caves crawling with insects and grotesque monsters, pools of blood glistening in dim light. The atmosphere is oppressive yet mesmerizing, pulling you into the world with every detail. That said, I couldn't help but feel a strong sense of déjà vu. Coming from Diablo 2 Resurrected, many of the environments in Path of Exile 2 felt strikingly similar. While this isn't necessarily a bad thing, it's hard to ignore the similarities. Character models in Path of Exile 2 have received a massive upgrade. Every piece of armor and weapon is rendered with incredible detail, from worn leather of your boots to the dazzling effects of premium skins. And speaking of cosmetics, let's take a moment to appreciate how Path of Exile 2 makes its competitors look, well, underwhelming. Comparing this to my time with Diablo's 4 early seasons, where many skins were bland or outright disappointing, Path of Exile 2 offers cosmetics that range from jaw-droppingly amazing to downright horrifying. The dynamic lighting is another game changer. Spells and abilities don't just impact your enemies, they transform the environment as well. Cast a fireball in a dark cave or use a fire ammunition, and the entire space comes alive with a warm flickering glow. Blinding spells send shadows dancing as they arc across the battlefield, and all those effects not only add the immersion but also make combat feel more engaging than ever. Particle effects has also been refined. Spells are visually striking without becoming chaotic messes, maintaining clarity even during the most intense battles. Abilities like Frost Nova or Inferno Totem feel distinct and satisfying. Combat is much easier to read compared to earlier iterations of Path of Exile, at least for now. Only time will tell if the future seasons layer on so much complexity that readability suffers again. Sound design is where Path of Exile truly shines. Every action, every environment and every enemy has a distinct audio identity. The clink of coins spilling from a chest, the wet squelch of critical hit, and the eerie chirping of birds in the jungle, all these sounds work together to immerse you in the Wraeclast world. Even combat is amplified by the sound design, with each spell and attack feeling as powerful to hear as it is to see. The crack of fireball exploding, the sharp hiss of ice, or the guttural roar of the boss charging up an attack, all these cues add depth and strategy to the gameplay. Music in Path of Exile 2 takes the immersion even further. It's not just a background noise, it's the dynamic, responsive part of the experience. The haunting melodies in town set a somber mood, while combat brings in adrenaline-pumping tracks that perfectly match the intensity of the action. Boss fights in particular are elevated by epic orchestrations that make each encounter feel like a monumental event. The score adapts seamlessly to your actions, which would be expected from the game, pulling you deeper into the world of Wraeclast. While Path of Exile 2 delivers on many fronts, it's not without its rough edges. Here are some of the issues I ran into and areas I hope the developers address before the full release. Let's start with the minor but glaring annoyance, the default key bindings. Why is the map bound to U and the shop to M? Who thought that that was a great idea? Sure, you can remap them, but discovering this odd setup for the first time was a head scratcher. It's not a deal breaker, but the more intuitive default layout would go a long way in making the game feel more polished. Another issue I encountered is the way mobs physically block your path, preventing you from dodging through them. This led to several frustrating moments, especially in the tight spaces like caves or narrow corridors. Early in the game, getting surrounded often meant an unavoidable death because I couldn't reload my crossbow fast enough to clear the swarm. My current strategy involves dodging and spamming grenades at my feet, but it feels more like a workaround than a solution. When combined with bosses that require precise movement, this mechanic becomes even more punishing, as the mob crowd often traps you long enough for a heavy attack to land. The loot system in Path of Exile 2 feels like it could use some fine-tuning. Compared to Diablo 4, where the drops are often tailored to your character and abilities, Path of Exile 2 feels more random. For example, I spent an absurdly long time using the same crossbow because nothing better dropped. On top of that, I went nearly the entire first act without finding rings or amulets. While this may be an intentional design choice to emphasize scarcity, it doesn't feel great from a gameplay perspective. Loot progression should feel rewarding, not like a chore. Another thing is the lack of clarity in mechanics. Some game mechanics aren't explained very well or at all. Take the spirit system for example. It took me an embarrassingly long time to figure out how to assign spirit reserving abilities. There's no tutorial or clear guidance, and the feature is tucked away behind a couple of UI clicks that you have to stumble upon yourself. For a game with so much depth, better onboarding for those systems would make a huge difference. So some of the boss mechanics can be hit or miss as well, with some of them leaning more toward frustrating than challenging. One example that stands out is the spirit boss who traps you in a cage of bones. The cage is supposed to have an exit, but on multiple occasions the exit faced walls, chasms, or other impassable terrain. This effectively left me to die unless I managed to brute force my way out, which, spoiler alert, didn't always work. Moments like this feel less like tests of skill and more like a bad luck. Now, let's talk about the story. The way Path of Exile introduces its narrative feels disjointed and hard to follow. The pacing is inconsistent and key plot points often feel glossed over or thrown at you without proper context. It's easy to find yourself wondering, wait, who's this guy, or why do I care, while pushing forward into the next area. Finally, let's talk about difficulty. While some players claim Path of Exile 2 is brutally hard, I wouldn't go that far. Instead, I'd say it has a steep learning curve and mechanics that take time to get used to. This isn't a game where you can tank boss attacks with your face and call it a day. It takes more Dark Souls-y approach where careful movements, precise dodges and patience are the key. You'll need to bide your time, wait for the openings and capitalize on those small windows of opportunity. It's challenging but fair, most of the time. Overall, game feels great, but it needs a bit more work to be a much better version of itself. In general, I'm already at Act 2 and I've been enjoying my time with the game, but there are certain things, especially in quality of life features, that could make this game much better than it is. But since it's early access, I really hope the developers will still do something with the game before full release. So that's it guys, that's my 5 cents on the Path of Exile 2. I hope you liked it. If you did, please subscribe, like the video, and let me know if you want to see anything specific for the next one. Thank you guys, cheers and see you in the next one.